I used to take pride in not sleeping as much. I used to be a programmer, and I remember going 3 days coding this incredible piece of software and taking pride that I could avoid sleep and fuel myself with Red Bull and coffee. That, of course, was the old. But even as I became an entrepreneur, I would try to minimize my sleep to 6 hours a night so I had more time to work. Today, I realized how dumb these ideas were. Today, I've started to really appreciate and understand how sleep is one of the most powerful things we can bring into our life when we do it in the right way. And as I've learned to understand the science of sleep and how to optimize my sleep, I've been able to do even more on a day-to-day basis while still getting 7 to 8 hours of rest every single night. But when I look at the world around me, sleep gets a bad rap. We have a president of the United States who talks about sleeping 5 hours a night. We have men like Elon Musk who brag about how they work till 2 a.m. and then function on very little sleep. Well, what we now know is that a lot of these people who are pushing themselves to compress sleep so they can do more in the world are actually operating on a false premise. You see, the human body needs sleep. And even if we slice away a tiny bit of sleep every single day, the impact that has on your emotional states, on your cognitive functioning, on your mind, your body, how you react to other people is so damaging. Yet, the average American sleeps between an hour to 90 minutes less than they should because we give sleep a bad rep. So I'll give you a couple of examples that really dazzled me. Anders Ericsson did a famous study on super performers, and he found that the best performers in the world slept more, not yes. This was the famous 10,000-hour study that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about, where it suggests Anders Ericsson wanted to see how long it took for a band to be as good as the Beatles, or for top violinists to become who they were. It took around 10,000 hours of study. But as part of that study, he also found that these maestros, as he called them, were sleeping 8.5 hours a day. The average American, 6 hours, 52 minutes. So there is this strange correlation between sleep and higher performance and higher maestro ability. Now, in the book, Eat, Sleep, Move, Tim Roth shared another interesting study. And this one is really easy to understand. If you simply subtract 90 minutes of sleep, you will function the next day like you just downed a pint of beer. It's a 30% drop in cognitive functioning. This means 30% less useful ideas at work, 30% slower time when you are trying to process email or go through a spreadsheet. Yet, people willingly sacrifice their sleep, thinking that they get to add more time to work. As I started optimizing my sleep and getting more disciplined of my sleep and seeing how this boosted my moods, boosted my energy, people in the office actually would ask me in the morning sometime, are you on some sort of happiness drug? You're in such a good mood compared to the vision we used to know. All that happened was I was adding on an extra 30 minutes to an hour of sleep. But as I did that, I noticed that some of my closest friends were not. They had not caught on yet to the power of sleep. I have a friend who's a famous actor who is hooked on sleeping pills. I have a friend who's a famous politician who is suffering because he's only able to get 6 hours of sleep a night because he is so busy. I have a famous friend who's an entrepreneur, and she too made the mistake I made, thinking that if she could only cut back an hour of sleep, she'd have more time for work, more time for family, more time for kids, not realizing how this was completely messing her up emotionally. So today on Mindvalley, we're going to bring proper sleep to the world. And I ended up interviewing a ton of different sleep experts and identified one man whom I felt was the most equipped, had the best protocols, had the best scientific research to truly help us understand sleep. And that man is Dr. Michael Breus. So,
well, thanks.
Welcome on set, Michael.
I'm excited to be here. This is going to be great.
Michael Breus, PhD, is America's most trusted authority on sleep. So Michael has had 3 Amazon best-selling books, over 100 TV appearances, over 100 keynote addresses. He's been featured on the Thrive Fuel list as 20 people changing the way we fuel our minds and bodies every single day. He's trained at Google, at PBS, at AT&T, Goldman Sachs, Crown Plaza, and tons of other companies. He is the man to go to when it comes to hacking and modifying and optimizing sleep. So a couple of incredible things people have said about Michael. David Perlmutter, MD, said, Michael Breus masterfully presents the science as a recipe for self-improvement. Dave Asprey, creator of Bulletproof, said, I haven't come across this way of thinking. If you're into biohacking, you really, really, really want to learn from Michael. Now, this person, Rhonda, who's a clinical social worker in Atlanta, Georgia, said, Michael Breus walked me through the process in his program, and within days, I was sleeping better and now get a full, restful night of sleep each night. Mehmet Oz, MD, said, Michael Breus is not just a sleep doctor, he is my sleep doctor. I trust him with my patients, my viewers, my readers. He has appeared on my show 39 times. He is fun, informative, and engaging. So welcome. And Michael, why is sleep so important?
You know, when we think about sleep as a thing, right, it encompasses every aspect of our lives. We know that sleep affects every organ system and every disease state. Literally, everything you do better with a good night's sleep. You know, the data that you were talking about, it's so true. It's amazing how people take sleep for granted. And they don't think about, gosh, how could sleep be affecting my productivity? How could it be affecting my mood? How could it be affecting the way I think, the way I react? All of these things. A perfect example, we now know that cancer cells multiply faster the more sleep deprived you are. Cancer, like we're not fooling around anymore, right? Like this is really big stuff. The Nobel Prize in Medicine this past year was given to circadian sleep researchers. The Nobel Prize. So when we start to think about it, sleep affects everything. Here's a great example. You can go for about 4 days without water. You can go for about 25 days without food. You can go for about 6 days without sleep. What's more important, right? Sleep or food? Clearly, it's sleep. You know, when we think about wellness, people always say, well, what is wellness? Well, it's diet and it's exercise. It's diet and exercise. We're missing the third leg on the stool, right? You can't have diet and you can't have exercise without good sleep.
And we call that recovery, the 3 pillars of wellness: diet, exercise, recovery. And
exactly.
Sleep is a key part of that recovery. So one of the most interesting things today is that sleep is less valuable to other people because apparently it gets in the way of things. Yet, the financial incentives to sleep are extremely strong. We don't count how many dreams we have in the bank. We tend to be trained to count how much dollars we have in the bank. Yet, sleep directly correlates to your performance at work. It correlates to your success as an entrepreneur. And not only that, most people who are watching this also care about their marriage, their health, their longevity, their emotional states. Sleep correlates with everything. Sleep is the #1 missing ingredient to living leaner, looking younger, and feeling sexier. Sleep is the prescription for rejuvenating your mind and body, improving your sex life. Who would have thought the more time you spend in bed, the better
you get in bed.
Increasing your energy reserves and vitality. And here's an interesting one, helping you lose weight.
Yes.
New research shows that if you don't sleep, you're more likely to be obese.
Oh, there's no question about it. When we look at the sleep deprivation curve, right, as sleep deprivation climbs, so does the obesity curve climb. When we look at population research, it's actually amazing. 5 different things happen when you become sleep deprived that can prevent you from losing weight, and in fact, make you gain weight. So the first thing is when you become sleep deprived, your metabolism slows down. Why does that happen? Well, your body is saying, well, you're awake. I need to conserve the resources that I've got inside because I don't know why I'm awake, but I better have some fuel if I'm going to keep going. The second thing it does is it makes you have an appetite. It raises your cortisol levels. Well, why would it do that? Because it wants you to get resources and bring them in, right? That's how the body functions, is keep the resources I've got, now go get more. So we have lower metabolism and higher appetite just from sleep deprivation, but it gets much worse. Then we look at it on a hormonal basis. When we look at our hormones, there's this hormone called ghrelin, which gives us hunger. Hunger and appetite are actually 2 different things in the brain. 20% increase in ghrelin, the more sleep deprived you get. A decrease in something called leptin, which makes us feel full. 15% decrease in leptin. So this is crazy, right? So you have high appetite because of cortisol. You have high ghrelin, which makes you hungry. You have low metabolism, and you have low satiety, or feelings of full. And here's the kicker, is our food choice, the more sleep deprived we get, gets worse and worse. right? So what do you grab for if you're tired?
It's a cascading series of bad decisions.
It's terrible, dude. It's crazy. So here's what ends up happening is if the great study, University of Chicago, so they had cakes and cookies and pies on one side, they had healthy snacks on the other side. The more sleep-deprived people got, they went straight for the sugar, straight for it. And we think we know why. So that level of cortisol is so high, and your brain doesn't like high levels of cortisol, because it contributes to adrenal fatigue, a lot of these inflammation, a lot of these problems. So your brain craves carbohydrates to increase serotonin. So when you eat a donut, when you have a Snickers bar, or whatever it is you do, it increases serotonin to quell that. But if you just weren't sleep-deprived to begin with, guess what? You don't have those cravings, you don't have the increased appetite, you don't have the decreased satiety, and then you can lose weight. Every weight loss plan out there should talk about sleep.
Which is why WildFit by Mindvalley, which is a nutritional training program, sleep is such an important
It's an integral piece.
part of the piece. And in WildFit, we ask people to sleep more, and we even modify people's caffeine intake gradually so that caffeine isn't interacting with their sleep. By the way, I love the fact that you're a doctor and you refer to me as dude. That's awesome. So we'll be talking more about the 28-day program with Michael shortly. But on this masterclass itself, you're going to get some powerful results to instantly, as in tonight, hack your sleep and make it better and more fulfilling. So Michael, tell us, what are we going to be covering in this masterclass?
So you're going to learn a little bit about how does sleep work in the brain. Not too much science, but just enough for you to be able to utilize those facts to be able to create your own personalized sleep pattern, bedtime, and wake-up time so that you don't need an alarm clock. So then next we're going to look at internal factors versus external factors. So how do things that affect us internally affect our sleep? So that could be everything from anxiety to caffeine or alcohol. Externally, what things could affect our sleep? That's things like children and pets in the bed and snoring bed partners and things like that. So that's going to be an important factor as well. Then we're going to look at naps. Naps is one of my favorite ways that we can actually augment our sleep. Or if you didn't get enough of that good quality sleep, I'm going to show you ways that you can catch up on some of that sleep that you might not be aware of. And there's a special napping technique that nobody's ever heard of that's going to blow your mind. And today, I'm going to give you a very simple 5-step action plan that you can implement tonight for better sleep.
Now, all of these tips are going to be actionable. We like our masterclasses to give you education that you can apply immediately. But we also know a lot of you are here because you want to hear about the sleep quest that we've developed with Michael Breus, where over 28 days, Michael trains you to really go into sleep mastery so that you're getting your best rest, you're getting your best recovery, your body is performing at its peak level, so is your mind, and you're sleeping at the right time for you so that you sleep like a sleep Olympian.
Right.
Sort of like what Michael does, where he can survive and be at his best at only 6 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So people should be pretty excited because one of the things we're going to do in this masterclass is we're going to give people practical information that they can literally start using tonight in order to sleep better.
And you're going to learn about Mindvalley Sleep Quest. For those of you who really want to gain mastery of sleep, this is for you. So Michael, how did you get so interested in this topic?
You know, it was kind of interesting because it wasn't like I planned on growing up and becoming a sleep doctor. I'm not even convinced I knew what a sleep doctor was when I first got involved in this. So I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and part of that training is you go for a residency. And during this residency, I really wanted to be a sports psychologist. I thought that was my calling. I was going to work with athletes and teach them to throw faster and do better and all these great things. And they said, well, you can't be in that program. And I said, well, how come? And they said, well, it was the #1 program in the country. And they said, that's where the Harvards and the Yales. I went to the University of Georgia, top 20 program, but it wasn't Harvard or Princeton. And so they said, we don't think you're going to be able to be in that program, but we have a sleep program that we think you would be interested in because of your background in electrophysiology. So I thought to myself, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to accept their offer on the sleep side of things, and then I'm just going to transfer as soon as I get there. Because, nobody's going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. But it turns out that when I got there, I absolutely fell in love with clinical sleep medicine by day 3. It was actually quite surprising. And I want to illustrate that by telling you a story of what happened with a patient of mine. So this was classic of what happens to me when I walk into a room. So I was treating this gentleman who was a GBI agent. So that's the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I started my practice in Atlanta. And he came in, a rather heavy-set fellow, and he turned to me and he said, I've been put to a desk job. I'm no longer allowed to do active work. All I can do now is sit here and I fall asleep on stakeouts. I'm miserable. He talked to me about suicide. He talked to me about being depressed. He talked to me about his anxiety. He said things weren't going well at home. Well, I noticed after my exam that he probably was a good candidate for having sleep apnea. So we did an immediate study on him that night, and 2 days later he was back in my office. And when he came back in, he wasn't alone. He was with his spouse. And she was not a small person either, and I'm not that big of a guy. And I walked in and she jumped up and she came running towards me and she gave me this huge bear hug and she was crying. And she said to me, she said, "Thank you for giving me my husband back." That's why I'm in sleep medicine.
Wow.
Right? I change more people's marriages than I would have ever done as a marital therapist as their sleep doctor. I change people's lives like this when it comes to sleep. And what I love about working with Mindvalley and doing the Mindvalley Quest, we can take that and we can spread it out. We can scale that. We can help millions of people sleep. I'm convinced, I am 100% convinced that if we all had a better night's sleep, the world would be a better place.
It would.
There's no question.
And there's data for this, because when you don't get enough sleep, you actually get more irritable, you get more cranky,
Yes.
and your emotions go through a flux.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You take it out on other people, and you make dumber decisions.
Oh, there's no question about it. My daughter tells me this, has the best description. She says, "Daddy, when people don't get enough sleep, they're grumpy fish." And I'm like, that's exactly right. That's exactly what they are. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, decision-making goes straight down the hill. A great study, University of Las Vegas, of course, looking at gambling and sleep loss. And what they discovered is that when you've lost sleep, you know what the risks are, you know that they're against you, and you don't care.
Wow.
That's interesting.
And that's why casinos are designed to deliberately make you lose sense of time and
Exactly.
sleep. For example, you don't see any windows. They block off all light.
And there's no clock, right? And they pump the oxygen in, all of these things, because again, you're not making great decisions when you're not sleeping well. You're not having good interactions when you're not sleeping well with a loved one, a person that you care about. If you're a manager at work, there is direct relationship between lack of sleep and leadership skills. There is direct relationship between lack of sleep and resilience, which is a very big topic within employment these days. I mean, sleeping pill use is the largest thing that self-insured companies pay for. It's the largest thing.
And you know what? And companies are now manipulating this to get you to spend your money. So, for example, if you look at the personal growth arena,
right.
There are many conferences, and Mindvalley refuses to do this, but there are many conferences that will make you be in the seminar room for 12 hours straight, right? Multiple days, 12 hours straight.
It's terrible.
And at the point when you are most tired, the 11th hour, the 12th hour, that's when they pull out the sales pitch.
Right, exactly.
You buy some $2,000
Oh, it's unbelievable.
$1,000 product. That's absolute crap.
Right.
And people buy it.
Oh, every single sitting U.S. president, when interviewed after they left the presidency, the first thing every single one of them said was, "Now I can get some sleep."
Right.
Every one of them. It's unbelievable.
This explains lots of Trump's tweets. Okay, so there are several paradigms that we need to change about sleep. Remember, we can grow through seeing the world through a new paradigm. And the funny thing about sleep is that there are certain lies about sleep that we've been trained to adopt as a society. What we want to do now is gently unwrap those lies. The first one is, I don't sleep because I'm too busy and I have too much to do.
Right. So this is fascinating, and this actually isn't anybody's fault. So it turns out that in our brains, the more sleepy we get, the more our brain tells us we're not sleepy. There's actually an active mechanism in our brain. Now this comes from caveman days. So if you were in the middle of being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and you got a little tired, it probably wasn't a good idea to take a nap. Right? Or if you were tired during the day laying down, you could become somebody's lunch, right? And so there's a part of our brain that tells us it's okay that you're sleep deprived, push on, right? That's when adrenaline starts to spike. That's when cortisol starts to spike. Not good for our overall health and not good for our immediate health either. So there's lots of things that go on. A lot of times we don't prioritize sleep. We say, well, I've got to finish up what's going on with my children. I've got to finish what's going on with my spouse. Of course, I've got to finish what's going on with work. And before you know it, sleep gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but none of those other activities do. As a matter of fact, those activities can be even bigger. We can push through, but the truth of the matter is, and I think Tom Roth's study that we were talking about before really says it great, If you lose 90 minutes of sleep, you might as well be making those decisions with, a half a six-pack of beer in you, right? That's not a good idea. So when we start to think about all the things that come into sleep and our lack of sleep, every stimulus out there is telling us not to sleep. Our phones, our tablets, our televisions, you name it, everything is saying that. But the truth of the matter is, we need sleep. Sleep is a basic fundamental need of our bodies. Sleep is when we heal, right? When we heal, that's the most important time in our 24-hour cycle because so much has been going on. And by healing, I don't just mean physical, I mean emotional, and I mean spiritual. A lot of healing goes on during sleep. And why would we want to shorten that time, right? Why wouldn't we want to optimize that time to get the best sleep we can get?
Write this down. If I take away 90 minutes of my sleep, I'm taking away 30% of my brain power in the following day.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're staying up late nights, getting less sleep, so that the next day you may not have to work as much, you're fooling yourself.
Oh,
because
yeah.
the next day your brain isn't going to be functioning. Cramming for an exam the night before is a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want you to rate yourself, honestly, on a scale of 0 to 10. How often do you skip sleep because you're too busy? All right, let's go to the second big lie. People who sleep more are lazy.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Because I've been called lazy my whole life because I've been trying to get the right amount of sleep for me, right? And we're going to talk about how that's different for different people, but the fact of the matter is that people who sleep aren't lazy. People who sleep are smart. People who sleep are enlightened. People who sleep understand how much you get from sleep. You get more energy from sleep than you can ever get from a pill or a coffee or even food, right? Sleep is so fundamental to who we are and our energy levels that we must continue to get sleep in order to heal.
And this is one of the things that was brought up in the Kay and the Erickson study on top violinists. They were sleeping 8.5 hours every single day.
Right.
And still, they were the ones who hit the maestro level in terms of their craft and their art. Now, the third big lie, now this is something I fell prey to until literally this morning when we were talking. I need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's a lie.
Not true. So that's one of the biggest lies in all of sleep. And there's a couple of reasons why. So first of all, the math doesn't work. When we look at overall sleep cycles, average sleep cycle is 90 minutes. Average person has 5 of those. 5 times 90 is 450 minutes or 7.5 hours. So right there, we know that doesn't work. But it's really interesting. If you sleep at the right time for your chronotype, it turns out you actually need less sleep. And if you sleep at a consistent level in terms of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, you actually need less sleep. So I'm gonna tell you about my sleep for a second. So I'm a night owl, or what I call a wolf. And so I go to bed at midnight, and I wake up around 6:15 or so every day without an alarm clock.
That's 6.5. That's six hours and 15 minutes.
Exactly. So that doesn't fit into this 7 to 9. Michael, how is that working? Number one, I sleep at the right time for my body, which is what a chronotype is. We're going to talk a lot about those. But there's early birds, in the middle, night owls, and then people who have trouble sleeping. There's different categories for these people. Once they know when to sleep, that actual sleep schedule begins to shrink a little bit because their body knows what to do and when to do it.
So this is fascinating. So you're saying that most people would need to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but when we learn the principles that you're teaching, you actually can customize and make your sleep more effective.
Exactly.
You're training your sleep.
Oh,
and so
totally.
now you can get 6 hours, 50 minutes. I mean, assuming that's your chronotype.
Right.
And still wake up completely refreshed like you do.
Exactly.
Because you're always high energy.
I am. I'm super high energy. And it has a lot to do with my sleep, right? And so being able to understand that becomes incredibly important for people.
Okay, big lie number 4, night waking. This has been bugging me. I wake up 3 to 4 times a night, and I thought this was okay until I met you.
Right, and so we started talking about it. So here's what's so fascinating. So when we spoke, we talked about what's the time of your last meal, right? And you said you stopped eating around, 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock?
9.
Right, and then you noticed your awakenings were happening around 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So from 9 to 3 is 6 hours. And what I turned to you and said, which you thought was so remarkable, was you're out of fuel, right? And so most people think when you go to sleep, you put the car in park.
Right.
Nothing could be further from the truth. You actually put it into about 3rd gear, and during REM sleep, you're full throttle. Right. Believe it or not, during REM sleep, your brain uses as much glucose as it does when you're awake.
Wow.
So if you don't have something right before bed to help keep your blood sugar stable, your blood sugar drops.
Right.
Your brain says, holy crap, there's no blood sugar. So your cortisol increases, boom, you're awake.
And this explains so much. This explains why I started waking up in the middle of the night when I started intermittent fasting. Right? So so now there are ways around that, where you get the best of both.
Of course.
That was a big revelation for me. And so night waking isn't necessarily good.
No, not at all. Now, there are some people who will wake up, so depending upon your age, like, for example, if you're a male, I'm 50 years old. If you're a male that's 50 and you notice you have an enlarged prostate, well, that's going to make you wake up and go to the restroom sometimes. That's a medical situation. Get it fixed by your doctor. But most people never even think of blood sugar as one of those issues. And it turns out to be a big one and an easy to fix one.
Now the fifth big lie that we learn from society about sleep is that one needs an alarm clock.
I just told you a minute ago, I don't even use an alarm clock. But it's so trained in our universe, right? Everybody thinks, well, I need an alarm clock to wake me up. Your body, if you're going to bed at the right time for you and waking up at the right time for you, you should never need an alarm. Let me repeat myself, never, right?
It just becomes automatic. So you wake up after 6 hours and 15 minutes with no alarm.
With no alarm, I wake up ready to meet the day, I'm good.
And there's no possibility that you might oversleep and miss an important meeting or an interview.
It never happens. It's unbelievable.
Because you conditioned your body.
Right. Now, I will tell you, if I've traveled 5 time zones, then I have a very specific set of protocols to help me with jet lag.
In this quest, do we cover jet lag?
You bet we do.
Yes.
Absolutely,
That
man.
is one of my biggest challenges.
Oh, and dude, it's crazy. The science is insane on this one. We've got this whole algorithm. We're going to teach people it's going to be nuts.
I love how the more excited you get, the more you drop the word dude. That's awesome. Just never had a doctor call me that before. It's kind of cool and refreshing. The first thing is, we want you to understand what happens to your body if you don't sleep.
Right. So let's start out by learning the science of sleep, because there's so many different ways that we can adapt this for people. And remember, everybody's sleep is different. So they're going to have a little bit of a different protocol. So that's what's so cool about it, is because it's personalized.
Perfect. So let's get started with the first step, which is understanding just what happens to your body if you aren't getting enough sleep.
So it can be a little complicated, but I wanted to break it down for everybody so they can see a couple of different areas that they might notice themselves. So first of all, remember that the more sleep deprived you are, first of all, it affects you physically. So there's a lot of different ways that can occur. Would you believe it that it slows down your reaction time by almost 33%?
Wow.
A third. Right? So when you think about that, why is that important? Well, what if you're driving a car, or part of your job has to do with transportation? You're a train driver, you're a bus driver, you're a truck driver. All of those things are going to have a major effect if you're sleep deprived. That reaction time, much lower. But also, what if you're just working out? What if you're trying to get your personal best? You can't do it when you're sleep deprived. It just doesn't work. We actually know that ATP doesn't convert to energy. It actually slows down the more sleep deprived you are. So again, at the most basic fundamental physical level, this is what's going on. For guys out there, we know that your testosterone drops dramatically. If you lose between 1 and 1.5 hours of sleep a night, your testosterone is as though you're 10 years older.
Wow.
10 years older, right? I'm 51 years old. I don't want 61-year-old testosterone. I want 31-year-old testosterone, right? You're not going to get that the more sleep deprived you are. For women, we see a lot of different things going on, specifically with hormones. We know that your hormonal cycles are very complicated. The more sleep deprived you are, the worse they get. We actually know from an instance of menstrual cycles, we know that menstrual cycles can be thrown off by sleep deprivation. We know that more pain can occur because of sleep deprivation. And this is across both genders, which is quite fascinating. We now know that the same pain stimulus causes more pain the more sleep deprived you are. And we've just started on the physical side. Now let's get to the cognitive side. We think slower when we're sleep deprived. Now, you guys all out there probably can imagine this as well, and you probably had this happen before. You ever walk into a room and forget why you're there, right? Or you can't remember all the items on the list, or you're talking with a good friend and you lose your train of thought? More times than not, that has to do with sleep deprivation. Now let's talk about our emotions, because it gets even worse there. Our emotions, the more sleep deprived we are, the more depressed we are, the more anxious we are. Great study also showed that when given a neutral stimulus, when you're sleep deprived, you rate it as negative. This is a neutral stimulus. This is something that you should get no positive, no negative out of you at all. But the more sleep deprived you are, the more negative you see it. So sleep affects us physically, cognitively, and emotionally.
That's incredible. And we don't learn this. We completely underestimate how it's wrecking our body.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's unbelievable. You know, you said something when we were at the reunion event together that I thought was quite fascinating. You said, why aren't schools teaching all of these important things? All of the things that we learn at Mindvalley from all of these courses, why aren't our schools teaching? The same holds true with sleep. When you look at science class and you look at health class, nobody's getting any of this information.
Okay, so that's good. So now you guys, hopefully by understanding that, you can start taking the right corrective actions to give yourself better sleep. Now let's get to the second point though, which is understanding the difference between internal and external sleep thieves.
Oh yes, sleep thieves. This is kind of one of my favorite topics. So when we look at what are the things out there that are robbing us of our sleep, we find there's external and there's internal. So let's talk about internal for just a second. Internal are things like caffeine, alcohol, right? Things that we put into our bodies and that has a major effect inside our bodies.
And that's something interesting. A lot of people think alcohol helps them sleep.
So it turns out that while alcohol makes you feel sleepy, it actually keeps you out of the deeper stages of sleep. Out of sleep, right? So just because, remember, there's a really big difference between going to bed and passing out, right? And so we want people going to bed. I'm not saying you can't enjoy alcohol if that's one of the things that you're interested in, but we're going to teach you how to do it so that way it doesn't affect your sleep. Caffeine's another one. Caffeine is one of the biggest robbers of sleep. It's the most abused substance there is, believe it or not. So when we look at caffeine, most people don't know caffeine has a half-life of 6 to 8 hours. So I'm going to teach you the timing of when you should have your caffeine and when you should stop your caffeine. So notice I didn't say you can't have caffeine, right? Because I'm not that guy. I want to work with people within their world to make their sleep better for them.
Which is funny because I learned from you that if I take a cup of coffee at 5, half of that cup of coffee is still in my bloodstream by midnight.
Exactly. Exactly. And it affects the quality of that sleep that you're getting.
It definitely does.
There's no question about it. Externally, what are some of the other factors? Well, we've got bed partners, right? So if you're sleeping next to a creature, and I use the word creature because it could be human or it might not be human. I have a French bulldog that sleeps in my bed, and I tell people about him all the time. So if you have a pet that sleeps with you, that could be disruptive to your sleep, or a child that walks through the door, right? There's all kinds of different external factors that can have a major effect on your sleep.
Now, you also talk about individual circadian rhythms.
Yes, so everybody has an individual circadian rhythm, which we call a chronotype, right? So this is really where the heart of chronotype science comes in. And by the way, this is genetic. So this is something that you're born with. We could actually, take your saliva or your blood and we could figure out exactly what your chronotype is. This isn't something that you choose. A lot of people say, oh, I want to be more productive and I want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Let me tell you something. That's not a good idea for a majority of people out there. There's a group, about 15% of the population, that's a perfect idea for. But I'm going to teach everybody how to find their perfect time for productivity because it's not everybody's is not at 5 a.m.
And this is an interesting thing, right? And we have to address this because you and I were in a documentary film by Hal Elrod called The Miracle Morning.
Exactly.
Right? And you also said, and what this documentary film suggests is that we wake up around 4 to 5, and start our morning. And of course, you and I were in that film, so we want to address why you're saying that that isn't necessarily true. And also, Mindvalley works with Robin Sharma, who wrote the brilliant book, The 5 a.m. Club. Again, waking up early to start your day. Now, here's the thing, though. The Miracle Morning and the 5 a.m. Club are suggestions, and they work for a certain demographic of people.
Exactly.
The main thing both Hal Elrod and Robin Sharma are saying is start your day with personal growth.
Right.
So I refuse to get up at 5 a.m. because I love my sleep.
Goodbye.
I wake up at 7.
Right.
And from 7 to 9,
that's
it's
your personal
growth time.
Exactly.
Right. It's dropping the kids off to school and personal growth. It's when I do the gym, it's when I meditate, it's when I have my shakes. So think of the 5 a.m. Club not as a hard rule, wake up at 5, but rather a metaphor, an idea, wake up early and start your day with personal growth. What they are trying to suggest is don't set your time to wake up just before you need to leave for work.
Exactly.
Set your time to wake up 2 hours before or so you have that opportunity to invest in yourself before you head out the door to work.
Exactly. And it's so fascinating because some people will take that idea of the 5 a.m. club to heart and say, well, I got to get up at 5 a.m. I'm telling you, the majority of people out there do not need to be getting up at 5 a.m. It's just not in their biology.
But for a certain group of people, again, if you know your chronotype, which you discover in the quest, it is exactly what you want to do.
And I love the principles that Robin brings forward. And I love the principles that Hal brings forward, which is you need to have some time for yourself before you start giving your energy to others. You've got to strengthen yourself before you can actually be able to perform. I love those ideas. I just want them at a little bit of a different time.
Right. So I hope you guys understand that superb nuance. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. Now let's go on to another idea. So this was one of the most important ideas that you shared when I brought you onto the Mindvalley podcast. People love this, and I really wanted you to share it here. It's the science of napping.
Oh, yes. So napping is fantastic. We started to learn a lot about napping by working with astronauts, believe it or not. So when you're working with astronauts, they have very strange time schedules. Believe it or not, if you're working with somebody who's up at the space station, they have a new day every 90 minutes. Because that thing's moving around the Earth pretty quick. And so all of their circadian rhythms are completely messed up. So what we learned is if we nap them at certain times, we can rejigger their circadian rhythms. But we down here on Earth can actually benefit from all these kinds of naps. And believe it or not, there are multiple types of naps. It's not just a 20-minute nap and a 90-minute nap, which are two of the kind of ones that I like to talk with people about. There are all kinds of different naps. So let's talk about naps for a second, and I'm going to teach you the best napping trick you've ever heard. So first of all, if anybody's out there ever taken a nap and felt worse, not better, after a nap, that's because you napped too long, right? So what happens is when you get past about 25 minutes, your body gets into deeper stages of sleep, and then you wake up and you just feel terrible, and you can't shake the sleep. But at 25 minutes or less, your body hasn't gotten into that deep stage of sleep yet, and that's important. The second thing that's cool is to do a 90-minute nap. So that's actually a full sleep cycle. So as an example, if you only got 4.5 hours sleep one night and normally you need 6, taking a 90-minute nap during the day could be very advantageous. But honestly, who's got time for a 90-minute nap during the day? I mean, I certainly don't. So I'm going to teach everybody something right here, right now that is pretty fun, and I call it the Napa Latte. So what you do is you take a cup of black drip coffee. The reason you want it black is because you don't want any dairy or any sugar in there. You want the straight caffeine, basically. You put 3 ice cubes in it to cool it down, just to cool it down, then you slug it. Drink the whole thing as quick as you can. Then immediately close your eyes for that 25-minute power nap. Here's what happens is you get enough stage 1 and stage 2 to remove something called adenosine from your brain, and caffeine is waiting in the wings, and it fits perfectly into those adenosine receptor sites, and it locks in. You're good for 4 hours. I mean, 4 hours. I use this with every single one of my top 100 CEOs that I work with in the world. All of them use this, and you're one of those guys as well.
Yes, I'm doing it today. After we're done shooting this masterclass, I have a big day of meetings and dinners, and I'm doing a Napa Latte.
Yeah, exactly.
And it works really, really, really easy. I even buy cold brew coffee from Whole Foods.
Right, which is perfect.
And use that. But it's so much fun. You just chug a bit of coffee, go straight. And what's the optimal time to nap? Because I know there's science for that as well.
Well, it depends on what you want to try to accomplish, but basically you're looking at about a 20 to 25 minute nap. You don't want to go over that. But it also turns out what time of day you nap will actually give you different things. So if you nap in the early morning hours, like between 9 and about 10:30, you actually become more creative. Michael, why on earth would anybody nap at 9 o'clock in the morning? Well, if you're a super early bird, what I would call a lion, and you woke up at 4:30, napping at 9 might not be such a bad idea for you, right? Other naps that we can have is between 1 and 4 in the afternoon. There's some great times for napping in there, and that actually increases levels of alertness. But it turns out one of the perfect times is between 1 and 3. Now, one of the things that people out there who might be from a Latin American country or who come from Latin American culture know, what does everybody do in those countries? They have a siesta, exactly. So napping is in your blood, right? Napping is in your culture. And here's what's fascinating is the biology behind it. So we fall asleep between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, not because we have a big pasta lunch. It turns out that there's a slight core body temperature drop between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. That same drop happens at 10:30 at night, which releases melatonin in your brain. So you're actually getting a small melatonin release between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. That's why you're tired. So here's a simple trick. If you're getting sleepy there and you don't want to do the Napa Latte, go outside and get a sunshine break for 15 minutes because sunlight turns off the melatonin faucet in your head. So one of the things that you can do easily is, even before you get tired, walk outside, get about 15 minutes of sunlight, you're gonna feel like $1,000,000.
Fantastic. Now let's go on to the 5-step action plan, okay? So this is the core of this masterclass. You've learned a ton of different ideas and paradigm shifts. We've dispelled a bunch of lies around sleep. And primarily, you're starting to understand now just how important sleep is. Now we want to give you a simple 5-step action plan to implement tonight. Now keep in mind, if you want to go deep into mastery of sleep, join the quest, and you'll get a special discount code at the end of this class, so stay tuned. But for today, try this 5-step action plan.
All right, so this is really cool. I've used this with literally thousands of patients in my career, and you're all gonna love it. It's very straightforward. So step number 1 is to have one sleep schedule. So picking your time, whatever that happens to be, and by the way, in the quest, I teach you exactly, personally, what your sleep time should be, but pick your time for sleep and stick to it. Most importantly is the wake-up time. Wake up at the same time every single day, because that resets your circadian clock. So step 1 is one schedule. Step 2 has to do with caffeine, and I ask you to stop caffeine by 2 p.m.
Wow.
Right? So caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours, as you mentioned earlier. So one of the things that we need to think through that idea is, if you stop at 2, most people go to bed around 10, 10:30, then at least half of it is out of your system. Now, I know there's somebody out there who's like, sleep doctor, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I can have a cup of coffee right before bed and be perfectly fine. So it turns out there's different caffeine sensitivities that we have to take into account. But even if you are very low on the caffeine sensitivity scale, if you drink a cup of coffee within 2 hours or 3 hours of bedtime, if I put electrodes on your head, the quality of the sleep that you're getting is diminished. You might still fall asleep, but those are just empty minutes, because you're not getting the quality of sleep that you need. So step number 2 is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3 has to do with alcohol. So again, there's a really big difference between going to bed and passing out. It takes the average human body 1 hour to digest one alcoholic beverage. So what I tell people is, if you're gonna drink with, let's say, your final meal of the day, then give yourself the time to be able to have it out of your system. So for each drink, it takes 1 hour. So if you have 2 glasses of wine or spirits or beer with dinner, then you're free to go to bed at 10 o'clock, right? 2 drinks, 2 hours, that becomes the bedtime. So you can really maneuver through this and be very, very safe. So generally speaking, I give a 3-hour window, because sometimes people might have 2, 2.5. So step number 3 is to stop drinking 3 hours before bed. Step number 4 has to do with exercise. It's the best way to improve the quality of your sleep. But you don't have to run a marathon. I'm talking 20 minutes of some type of cardio 3 times a week. So if you're doing something like that, step number 4 is you don't want to exercise too close to bedtime, because your body can get too revved up and too warm. So stop exercising 4 hours before bed is step number 4. And step number 5 is to give the sun a high five every morning by getting 15 minutes of sunlight. So within 30 minutes of waking up, if you can get outside or go to a window and get that direct sunlight, it turns off that melatonin faucet and actually helps you sleep. So in summary, step 1 is to stick to one wake-up time, including the weekends. Step number 2 is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3 is to stop alcohol 3 hours before bed. Step number 4 is to stop exercise 4 hours before bed. And step number 5 is to give the sun a high five every morning and get 15 minutes of sunlight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. This was so eye-opening. There's so much here that I still have to learn. So I'm so excited about that quest that's emerging. Let's talk about that for a second. For those of you who really want to go deep into mastery of sleep, know this: every program I bring into Mindvalley, I bring it because this is some area of my life that I want to master. It started out with meditation some 12 years ago, but now it's everything from how to get into great physical shape, to how to extend your lifespan, to how to work with energy healing, and in this case, how to optimize sleep, because the fact is, we spend 1/3 of our lives asleep. And it is one of those areas of being human that doesn't get the respect it truly deserves. So this 28-day program on Mindvalley Quest is designed using behavioral psychology to train you over time to develop the best sleep patterns, the sleep patterns of champions, as we call them. And it doesn't necessarily mean more sleep. What we're rather going to teach you is how to identify your chronotype. This quest is based on a concept called adaptive learning, which means that based on data from sleep trackers, you get specific recommendations for you. So it is truly customized beyond any other program we've produced, or in fact, any other program out there in the world. Because Mindvalley's learning platform currently is the most advanced learning platform.
Oh, there's no question.
Now, let me share something else. So if you were to work with Michael one-on-one, you'd be paying about $7,000. What Mindvalley tries to do is to take an experience that is so powerful, so life-changing, and bring it down through economies of scale to something that anyone could afford. So this Sleep Quest, as you will see, is at a very low price compared to what you are gaining from it. A lifetime, decades of better sleep. This will add years to your life, vitality to your life, a spring in your step, and it's going to make you happier because it's going to shift your moods throughout the day, and it's probably going to make you better at your job because your cognitive performance goes up. And all of that is for a few $100 as you go through this 28-day program. Now, once you get the program, we want to make sure it's safe for you and it's right for you. So you can go all the way up to day 10 and try it out and sleep on it, literally. In fact, you can sleep on it 10 days in a row and then decide if you really want to go through the full program. If not, get a full refund. We make it easy. Mindvalley.com/refund. So you don't even have to make up your mind right now. You get to try the program. So in a moment, I'll tell you a little bit more about what makes the program unique. But first, what I want to do is summarize what you've learned thus far. So, Michael, would you care to start?
Sure. So far, people now have learned a little bit more about what is sleep and how does it work. They've learned a little bit more about some of the sleep myths that are out there that we busted here together. They've learned my 5-step plan for being able to get better sleep tonight. And they've also learned about napping and how they might be able to utilize napping. And of course, my famous Napa latte that I think everybody probably got a lot out of.
So here's how much deeper we go with this Sleep Quest. First, know that this is a 28-day program. Mindvalley pioneered a model called Mindvalley Quest. It's a behavioral modification technology on an app and also on Apple TV and your desktop, all in sync so you can learn anywhere. And over 28 days, we create deep transformation in people. We've used this to help people lose weight through programs like WildFit, have people become bolder in terms of their visions for their life through programs like Lifebook. And here, we're helping people sleep like champions. It's a 28-day program because you cannot create change by making you watch a 3-hour video or even an 8-hour course. It has to come slowly, deliberately, day to day, as you build a consistent habit. So quests work like this. Every day, you'll get a short video on your smartphone that lasts between 5 to 20 minutes. You'll learn about sleep and you'll get a specific thing to do that day. Now, the program starts on a specific date because we will have some 1,000 students starting together, connected on an online community. You can join the community, and when you're on that community, everyone is going through day 1 together. Everyone starts together. Everyone goes through every day together, and everyone crosses the finishing line together. And on that community, we also add facilitators who are there to answer your questions and help you along. And what you'll find is that the Mindvalley student community, which is now some 500,000 students, are so friendly, so compassionate. They're just good people, and they support you on this journey, right? So you're actually transforming your sleep patterns. You're learning to sleep like a champion, and you're doing it in a way where you're not just being blindly told what to do, but you're getting so educated, you can answer this for other people. And we're also modifying your behaviors so it becomes part of you, not something you have to force yourself to do. It literally becomes ingrained in your identity. So here's what we're going to be covering. After you finish this 28-day program, you will have a personalized sleep routine based on your chronotype, which will result in you having more energy and less fatigue. You'll see cognitive performance go up, which means you are better at generating ideas. You are better at work. Most people forget this. They sacrifice their sleep for their job. As a result, it's like trying to function at work with 1/3 of your brain being scooped out, right? Here, it's enhancing your brain. Next, you will learn how to fall asleep easier and have more quality sleep. I'm doing this program because I have a sleep issue. I've started waking up every 2 to 3 hours, and I don't know why, and I want to end that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also doing this program because I want to sleep like a champion. I want to not just get 7 hours, but get 7 hours and wake up feeling fully alert.
Right.
And if you're like me and you're not satisfied with just good sleep, but you want champion level sleep, this program is for you. Because I know the results are going to pay off in my ideas, in my moods, in my work. Furthermore, I travel a lot. And this program will teach you how to fight and overcome jet lag. How cool is that? You're also going to learn how to optimize your bedroom and build personalized morning and evening routines. You will learn topics such as the best time of day to exercise based on your chronotype. You will learn multiple relaxation techniques such as muscular relaxation for a calmer mind and more quality sleep. You will learn what to do if your partner or roommate snores.
Yes,
you will learn actionable steps for parents to get more quality sleep throughout the night when you have kids in the house. You will learn how nutrition impacts sleep. You will learn how to optimize napping. NASA did a study and they found that astronauts could perform 30% better if they implemented the simple napping tactic. In Mindvalley's new office, we actually have installed napping pods.
Right.
Because we know employees can use this if they know the right technique to boost their productivity in later hours of the day. You will learn about the nasty side effects of sleeping pills and what you can do to slowly get off them. You will learn the proper way of drinking coffee, and you will learn how to overcome alarm clock addiction. Finally, you gain a comprehensive understanding of what internal and external factors impact sleep, what are impacting you the most, and how you can fix the program. So it's 4 weeks, it's 28 days, and we're going to go week by one so you have an idea of what's going to be covered. Now, as a thank you for watching this masterclass, we want to give you a special unlock price. As a thank you for investing this hour with us, we have unlocked a special price. You only get it on this page. You can enroll now to start the next batch, which is coming up with Michael. And remember, think about how much this is going to add to your life. What would it mean to see your cognitive functioning on a day-to-day basis go up because you are now a master of sleep? Is that worth $200? That idea alone will probably add millions to your life. So this and other programs that Mindvalley sells, I believe, are the best thing to spend your money on because they make you a better person, a more optimized person. And when you put money in your self-growth, you will find that every other area of your life will grow accordingly. So, Michael, let's tell these students what's happening week by week. Let's start with week one.
So it's actually pretty fascinating what we're going to be going through. So the first week, you're going to begin to understand the science of sleep. This is something that you might have thought was a mystery before. You know, you go into the back of the room in your house, and you hope that something happens for 6 or 7 hours and you come out. You're going to now know exactly what's going on. So you're going to have that level of knowledge, which is going to be great because you're going to be able to learn it, but you're also going to be able to pass it on to your friends and your loved ones and things like that.
And that's exciting. When you become an expert of sleep, you end up really helping a lot of people heal.
Exactly. And remember, that's what it is. Sleep is healing. So week one, you're also going to learn how to monitor your sleep, which is something it's not a tracker. It's not something that you put on. This is something that you're going to do. You're going to become a sleep scientist just like me. And that's going to be so important because once you start to understand your sleep, you're going to be able to pick things out and see patterns and then continue to customize your sleep plan. The second week is all about that personalization. Once you learn what your chronotype is, everybody gets a different plan. Everybody gets a different plan, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, that we can personalize this type of information right here for everybody. And you're going to have a personalized wake-up routine. You're going to have a personalized bedtime routine. You're going to have a personalized bedtime. All of these things just for you. And one of the things I want to tell people here is this actually could have a big effect on your relationships. And let me tell you why. One of the biggest things that people tell me, my patients, is they say, well, I like to go to bed at one time and my bed partner goes to bed another time and I force them to go to bed with me. That's not necessarily the good thing. What we want to teach you is what is your correct time. And then maybe even what is their correct time and how it's okay if you need to go to bed at separate times because you're having the sleep for you. And that's what's so critical.
It's fascinating. If people believe that all of us sleep the same, and so people expect their bed partner to be in bed with them. It almost is insulting.
Right.
If you're going to bed and your bed partner wants to stay up and work.
Right.
It's sometimes insulting if you wake up early and your bed partner wants to sleep another 2 hours. But the fact is there are different types of chronotypes. And what's interesting here is that you are not wrong. So many people I see decide that they want to emulate their friend who goes to bed at 1 or emulate their friend who gets up at 5, and they wreck their biology.
Exactly, and that's what we want to avoid.
And when you understand that there's a unique routine for you, and there are ways to make your partner and your friends understand, you perform like a sleep champion.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Week 3, we actually get into even more things that are going on. So we learn things about exercise. You learn things about nutrition, when to eat, when to exercise. All of these become very big factors in our overall sleep. I'm also going to teach you something called progressive muscle relaxation, which is a great technique for people who are having a hard time falling asleep. We're also going to talk about what do you do in the middle of the night if you wake up during this particular week. So all kinds of different issues are going to go on. And then our final week looks at our...
Just on week 3, there's something really, really cool about week 3 is you start understanding this. You start seeing better results in all the other Mindvalley programs you're doing.
Right.
For example, if you're doing WildFit for nutrition, sleep is essential. Sleep elevates your metabolic rate, so you end up burning more fat.
There's no question.
If you're doing 10x for muscle building, sleep, latest science shows that if you are trying to build muscle, you need sleep. It's necessary as a form of recovery. So you start seeing an elevation in the results of everything else you're doing, and also an elevation in things such as Super Brain Program because your brain is functioning better, and you will also see an elevation in the results you're getting from any spiritual program.
I mean, here's what I can tell you. Jim Quick does this, right? I mean, he's the super brain guy, and he knows how
You're his sleep doctor.
I'm his sleep doctor, right? So we know this is all combined together. It's really pretty amazing. 4th week is all about sleep robbers, right? So I talk about, do you have that snoring bed partner that's driving you crazy? Or, you know, I've got a French bulldog in my bed. How do I manage something like that? There's a lot of different things that you're going to learn how. And by the end of this program, you truly are not only going to have a personalized sleep program specifically designed for you, but you're going to have the knowledge to know what to do when some of these other things might come up. When a new threat comes in for your sleep, you're going to be able to identify it, know it, understand it, adapt to it, and move forward. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're accomplishing. That's where mastery really comes in.
So think about it this way. All of us have been mistrained to sleep.
Yeah.
Because our schools didn't know better, our parents didn't know better, our corporations don't know better. And through the bad practices in a university system, I would cram before an exam, staying up all night on certain mood enhancement drugs. I, as an entrepreneur, thought I had to hack my sleep down to 6 hours, not realizing I was doing it wrong. You're doing it, I was doing it wrong. And then I couldn't understand why I was so moody and I wasn't being able to think and focus straight the next day.
Right.
And so all of this is now being cleared. We're training you to function as a sleep champion. You become one of the experts in your social circle in terms of sleep. And you get to help heal everyone else because sleep is one of the most powerful things we can do in our lives. Now, to enroll in the program, you got to be prepared for this. Be prepared to put in 5 to 20 minutes a day for 28 days. That's it.
Right.
And remember, you're going to get that time back because you're going to be sleeping better.
Right.
And therefore, throughout that week, you're actually going to see your productivity at work go up. What might have taken you 8 hours, you might be able to do in 6.5. I've noticed that repeatedly when I started hacking sleep. So this program gives you back time. Now, the cost of the program is a few $100s, depending on whether you buy it later or you buy it now. You buy it now, there's a big saving. And I'll put it this way. Yesterday, I took 4 friends out to dinner, and it cost me $400 here in Santa Monica with wine and everything, right? And I did a great favor for my friend. That's wonderful. If I had taken that same amount of money and put it in this program, I would be adding value, not just to the friends I took out, but to everyone in my life. Because sleep actually makes you kinder, it makes you gentler, it makes you more caring, because it makes you less of an ass. Because your moods are now more stable. Now, as this happens, what happens is that you do better at work. Science actually shows that if you are kinder, gentler, more caring at work, your odds of a promotion go up 40%.
Oh, there's no question.
Right? Now, in addition, your cognitive ability is going up. So you're thinking better, you're functioning better, you're presenting better ideas. In addition, your health is going up. Now you're living longer. Now, if you add all of that up together, mastery of sleep is going to add a lot to your life. What would it be? I want you to answer 4 questions for me, okay? And if you answer yes to these 4 questions, or even a single one of these questions, you want to go into this program. The first question is, what would your life look like if we could add 30% more brain power every single day.
Right.
Okay? And this means you are 30% smarter, or you can do a job in 30% less time. The second question is, what would your life be like if you were perpetually in a better mood? No grumpiness, no irritation, more patient, kind, and compassionate with others. What would that do for your social circles, for the people you connect with? The third thing is, what would your life look like if you were healthier? If you were getting sick less? And yes, if you shave away 90 minutes of sleep, your immunity goes down 500%.
Yep.
Right? And also, your muscles aren't developing. You aren't going to be as good at sports or at the gym.
No way.
And your metabolic rate has plummeted. What would it be like if you had a body that was just functioning like an athlete? What would that add to your life? And the final one is, what would you do if you had more time? How does optimizing sleep give you more time? Well, when you improve your sleep cycles, the very next day, you're able to do more in less time. So already, you're able to do the same amount of work in a significantly lesser amount of time because your brain power is better. But the other thing that's happening is that your lifespan is extending.
Exactly.
Modern science shows that sleep will make you live longer.
No
and not
question.
only will it make you live longer, but it makes you look better as you grow older because it slows down aging from skin to wrinkles to brain functioning to your vitality.
Let's talk about libido.
Libido, yes.
That's another big one, right? So people are more active sexually when they're getting sleep. People perform better sexually when they're sleeping more. I mean, one of the most basic primal drives that we have is affected by sleep.
So what is that worth to you? Attach a number to all four of those, and you will see why this and Mindvalley programs in general are the best thing you can spend your money on. The singular best thing, because they give you everything else. Right. So I'd encourage you to enroll. And again, you don't have to make up your mind on this. You can try it out. Up to day 10 of the program, completely risk-free. Try it out all the way to day 10. And if you feel this isn't the highest quality program you've ever experienced, or even if you don't like the color of Michael's shirts, I don't know, just go to mindvalley.com/refund and just refund yourself, right? It's super easy. So all you have to do to enroll is to scroll down below and click enroll on this page and take advantage of the unlock price. And we'll see you in the Sleep Quest. You'll get an email with everything you need to know to download the app and get started. And if you already are a Mindvalley customer, instantly, the Sleep Quest program will appear on your Mindvalley website and your Mindvalley app. Now, Michael, people always have interesting questions about the program, and what we want to do over here is spend a few minutes going through some of the most common questions. You all set?
I'm ready to go.
Great. So the first question is, will this require me to take any type of medication or purchase any special equipment?
No, absolutely not. There are a couple of things that might be helpful in terms of accentuating what we're doing, like if we're talking about light, and maybe you might want to consider blue light blocking glasses, but there's nothing, everything is contained in the course,
right.
And it will help you without ever doing anything outside the course.
Right. Now, second question is, who is this program for?
Literally, it's for everybody. Now, I would be honest in saying that we probably don't want people taking it who are under the age of probably 16 years old, because their sleep patterns are going to be very, very different, and I would have to make a special accommodations for them. But literally, everybody out there would be able to benefit from this course.
So this is a common question, I guess. I don't have a lot of extra time. How many hours will I have to spend on this program?
So it's actually not that much time at all. I mean, some of the modules are only 5 minutes. Some of them might be as long as 20. But only thing I ask you to do on a regular basis is track your sleep and then also do the assignments in the Facebook group.
Next, how is this program different from any other way of learning and optimizing sleep?
Well, I think the first thing that shows a big difference is just the depth of content that we're going to be giving people. I mean, it's unbelievable how much information we've got here, but I really like the adaptive learning section of this part as well, because it becomes personalized.
Right.
And that's the thing that's so different than anything else that I've ever seen, is nobody's actually created programs that people can go into, have differences in their lives that would affect their sleep. So this is what's so amazing about this I mean, there's literally not one like this in the world.
Right. I mean, and then, of course, there are books you can read on optimizing sleep,
of
but
course.
we know that typically when people read these books, it may lead to one or two ideas, but it doesn't lead to a rapid transformation, right? This program is designed to transform people at an identity level. That means your beliefs, your mindset, your attitudes all shift. Now, for this to happen, there are a couple of ingredients which are necessary. One is, it cannot be a straight up watch 8 hours of video.
Yeah, no.
It has to be 5 to 20 minutes day to day, slowly, behavioral modification occurs. It has to be done with the community because we learn our best often when we are collaborating and communicating with everyone. Now, you don't have to join the community, but that's there as a bonus.
Right.
And it has to be spread out over 28 days because it takes around that time for you to start locking in these new beliefs and these habits. And that's what makes this effective. Finally, it's Mindvalley's magic. It's the quality of the app, the quality of the filming, the quality of our teacher, D. Michael Breus, and the quality of our learning lab, which actually builds these programs constantly, taking into account all these different dimensions and theories on learning so that we actually have completion rates 10 times better than most ordinary programs.
Yeah, well, it's really amazing because when you get people in that environment, they almost can't help but change their lives.
Now, another question is, do I have to sleep 8 hours a day?
No, that's the whole point. You're gonna figure out exactly how much sleep you need and then when you should have it, and that's what's going to happen.
And then, I have a diagnosed sleep disorder, such as sleep apnea or narcolepsy. Will this program help me?
So that's a great question that I think we should definitely spend a minute or two on. So this is not a program for somebody who's trying to cure or treat their sleep disorder. So if you have undiagnosed apnea or narcolepsy or restless legs, this is not the course for you. However, if that's something that you've been treated for and that's currently going on and you want your sleep quality to improve, this is absolutely a course for you. So again, this is not a course to fix or treat your apnea, narcolepsy, or restless legs, but if that's already been treated in you, you are good to go.
Fantastic, Michael. So this is amazing stuff. I cannot wait to get started, and thank you so much for joining us on Mindvalley.
No, the pleasure is all mine. I'm excited to be part of the Mindvalley community, part of the Mindvalley platform, and really help people educate themselves about sleep.
Thank you, all of you guys, for watching. So if you want to sleep like a champion, simply scroll down below, click enroll, and I'll see you in our sleep program with Michael Breus. I cannot wait to see the results you're going to be getting from this program.